patience been a virtue. Get it, we gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore. That's why we step by step it.
Welcome back to another episode of Belleme Backstage. Today's guest, we welcome Lia Fialho, who is an amazing professional dancer, and we're so excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first question I always ask is, how did you get into dancing?
Yeah. So I got into dancing. I've been dancing like 24 years now. So I started when I was just like a little girl. Back in Massachusetts. I'm from Springfield originally. And it's just something that like my parents all the time, they're like, you were always dancing, like no matter what, dancing around the house. Dance is like a big part of like our culture. My parents are from Portugal. And so like just like the music and the dancing, it's something that I always saw at like family events, you know, at parties, at weddings. And so I've always just like deeply loved music and dancing. And I started at a studio that honestly, I owe a lot to them. They were just like, they became my family kind of like away from home. It was always my favorite thing to go after school and go take dance classes. I started as a little ballerina, as most little girls do, you know, they start in ballet. And I actually really loved ballet. So that was kind of my main style that I trained in up until I was like 20. I did point. Point was painful, but very pretty. So I loved point too. Yep. And then when I went to college, I studied dance in college as well. I did a couple of like the dance teams there at UMass. And I tried, I graduated in the pandemic 2020. So a tough time to graduate. A very rough year. Yeah, it's the pandemic. And there was actually kind of like a blessing in disguise for the dance community during the pandemic. A lot of like really well-known choreographers and stuff based out of LA and in New York and different parts of the world were hosting like free online classes, a way of like getting the community moving while everyone was kind of stuck in their homes. Sure. And it kind of forced me out of my comfort zone a little bit. I started taking like different styles. I started taking heels. I started taking more like street styles and everything. And in doing that, I was like, I kind of want to do this all the time. And that's kind of inspired my move to New York City. I moved here in 2021. And that's when I began really training professionally and working in it professionally as well.
Wow, that's incredible. I guess for those that aren't too familiar with dance, like what is heel?
I was like, I don't want
to. It's a question we get all the time. Essentially, heels is just like the shoe that you're dancing in. So you're dancing in a stiletto. So typically, like the stilettos that I dance in are like 4.5 inches. You can also dance in a pump. But you can do any style in a heel. I am a very much like whatever I can do not in a heel, I will try to do in a heel. So it is a little bit more like on the sensual side in nature just because you are dancing in a heel, but you can do like a hip hop heel. You can do a more contemporary heel. It's very like performance based, very commercial. A lot of times when women are booked on jobs, they have to be in heels. So it's mostly just the shoe, but there is like specific aspects of like a heel style, specific techniques that go along with dancing in a high heel.
So you said you mentioned that you started off with ballet. Yeah. And so you also said that the first studio that would take you in was kind of like the huge blessing in disguise. Like, how did you make that jump from, okay, I'm dancing around in my room to now I'm going to go to do something that is more legitimate, like study techniques, stuff like that?
Yeah. So the studio that I danced at, it was called Dance Workshop. And my dance teacher, Miss Brenda, she was like the owner. They always do like, I was Miss Lia. It's just like how the dance teacher names go. Yeah. And she was quite literally like an angel on earth. She was one of the nicest women you'll ever meet in your life. I couldn't always afford to take like a ton of dance classes growing up, and she would let me take classes for free. She would let me help out at the studio. So she just really like gave me a lot of opportunity with it to try out different styles. I was like kind of stuck in the ballet because I was like, I get my one class a year. This is what I'm going to do. And she was like, I can tell you love it. I want you to try out different things. Don't worry. Like you can work at the studio and everything. So I started doing like competition dancing. That got me into more of like a professional type realm because I was just it was just looking at dance a different way. And she inspired me a lot in terms of like being a professional dancer. I teach as well, and just like how far like that impact can go, and just like what that kindness means to people. So from the ballet to heels, honestly, it helps a lot. A lot of my students ask like what foundational styles I recommend for heels dancing, and ballet is a huge one because it's very technical. It's based in balance and structure, and it's a lot of strength. In heels, obviously, you need a lot of balance and strength to maintain your balance and everything when you're doing turns and flips and hair whips and whatever you're doing in a heel.
Anyway,
so yeah, you're already on your toes. So I think it was like a natural transition into that style. A lot of like popular heels dancers have that type of technical ballet training.
What would you say is the style that you enjoy the most?
I really love, even though I'm still working on getting better at it. I love hip hop and I love heels. I love heels for a lot of reasons. It's a very empowering style, specifically for women. It's a lot of ways that like a lot of my students are using it as a way to kind of like reconnect to themselves, feel comfortable in their bodies, feel comfortable expressing themselves in a way that sometimes, women aren't necessarily supposed to be too sensual or too sexual or whatever.
Right.
So it's a way for them to kind of like re-own that themselves. And I just love seeing the confidence that a lot of women have when they dance in a heel and when they take these classes. And then hip hop, just because I love it. It's just fun. The music, a lot of the teachers in the city are great. There's just like so much community linked into those styles that you're in those classes and it's just like all you feel is that community and that love. And that's why I dance still to this day. It's just like that love I have for it. So those classes where it doesn't feel like a class and it just feels like I'm having fun, those are the styles that I love.
So are you still taking dance classes and you're teaching dance classes?
Yes, always a student. I'm always training.
I love that mentality.
Yeah, a lot of the jobs I end up booking, I'm not even in a heel. So I like to like continuously train in different styles to make sure that I'm always like ready. And because it's just fun to like learn different styles and be as versatile as you can. And then I can bring that into my teaching as well.
Yeah. So which styles do you teach currently?
I currently just teach heels.
Okay.
Yeah. I do some like foundational classes, beginner. That's just like not in a heel technique. That's more rooted in my ballet background. But in terms of like my pop-up classes and the classes I teach at a studio here, they're heels.
Yeah. From in terms of like, teaching, are you in like teaching online? Or like what part does, social media play into it versus what part is it you're going to like a dance studio and teaching there?
Yeah. So I have a slot at a studio in Midtown. It's called SAS Class. They do a lot of like different kind of beginner friendly classes for people. And then I do pop-ups also at another studio in kind of like the Midtown area. Social media is huge in dance, just in terms of like your branding individually. It's kind of one of those things like to be a professional dancer, you have to have an active social media. I've honestly booked 90% of my jobs from my social media. It's just a way for people to find you, for them to see kind of like your unique style, your craft. It's essentially my online portfolio. Like my Instagram, I tell people all the time, like this isn't like a lot of me personally. It's me and dance. Like that's like Lia the dancer. Because it's even like auditions, you have to put your social media, you have to link it. It's integrated into every type of work in this industry.
Yeah, and speaking of social media, during COVID times, I think we saw a big burst of people just doing online dancing, like on TikTok. Not necessarily on the professional level, but just dancing different choreographed dances and stuff. I'm curious to get your opinion in terms of how you feel about that. Does that compete against professional dancers, people that actually have the background? Or is this something lighthearted? Do you, partake in that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's pretty lighthearted. Like I said, like dance, it's rooted in like communities, and that's how a lot of different communities were staying connected during that time. And it's just like fun. A lot of like the TikTok dances are just like cute, fun little things. My biggest thing is just to always credit the creators of even those little TikTok dances. It doesn't matter if it's just like a 10-second choreo. Someone came up with that. That's still like something that they put into. So that's my biggest thing. If you're doing like those social media dances or you're learning things online, it's just always credit where it came from.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of teaching, what has been one of the bigger hurdles that you've had to? Because obviously, if you have your own talent, right, sometimes it can be hard to teach someone that may not be able to grasp something as easily as maybe you did. So what kind of challenges have you faced in that capacity?
I think a lot of times it's understanding like there's a difference between just choreographing and teaching. Teaching is like a different skill entirely. Making sure that you're checking in on the people in your class continuously. I've been known to put a lot of tricks in my choreo. I love to like throw myself around the floor, and it kind of scares some people, and they're like, I want to take your class, but I'm nervous. I'm going to hurt myself. And I was like, no, you won't. So I think it's just like understanding the level I make it very clear. I usually post like a little snippet of what the choreo is going to be, so people don't come in like blindsided as to like how hard it's going to be.
Sure.
And just, I always try to like really instill in my students, like no matter how hard this choreo is or what we're doing, the base of what you're doing is that you love this and you're trying to tell a story and you're trying to connect, whether it be with people on Instagram or people in this class or people that are going to be watching you dance. That connection is the most important part. And I think sometimes that takes away the stress of like getting the steps perfect. And making that kind of like the focus of the class instead of I want you guys to have this perfect, because no one's going to have it perfect. It's class. Yeah. Where,
right.
You know, people are in there to learn and to grow and there's different levels. But I just try to make sure that people are like resonating with why they started dance in the first place and what got them into that room. And because people that love, that happiness that you have dancing, that's going to shine through regardless if you have the steps or not. So yeah, just making sure you really understand people and trying to make them comfortable.
That's a really interesting concept of like the story and the dance combined. I don't think I've ever personally heard like the telling stories through dance, but I guess it's like, you know, one of the things that you teach. How do you incorporate storytelling into choreography? Yeah,
so I love, because a lot of my base is in like contemporary as well, and there's just certain styles where me personally, as a dancer, I watch it and it just like makes you feel something, you know, like sometimes I'm like, sometimes it can be linked to like heartbreak or to like struggle or to different things like that, or even to like joy. You know, the storytelling doesn't have to be something sad and tragic and can just be like, I'm having a good time. So a lot of times, specifically on the songs I choose, I try to like really listen to the message of the song itself and what that artist was thinking putting into that song and kind of finding a way to translate that to our bodies and communicating that. And everyone's going to interpret it different, right? So if there's a song about like heartbreak or some type of sadness, everyone's going to interpret those lyrics differently based on their own life experiences. And that's what I think the most beautiful thing about dance is, because the way that people express it, even within the movements I give them, it's all going to be different. And it's going to tell a different story based on who's dancing it, because everyone has their own unique experiences that they've lived.
Yeah. And then so you're recording this especially for your professional side, and you're putting that out there for the entire world to see, to judge, to compare it through, their personal experiences. Like, what is that like, putting things out there for complete strangers to like watch and judge you?
Yeah, it definitely, this industry requires a little bit of a thick skin. Sometimes people have and it's really tough when it's something that you created and you're like, oh my God, this is so like raw and deeply personal to me, and people are like tearing it apart.
Yeah.
But it happens because, it's out there and people act how they want to act on social media. So I think it's just like, as long as you're happy with what you're putting out, like if I'm like, I'm happy with what I did and I feel it, I kind of just like, I ignore the any negativity that I get based on that. And I would say most of the time it's well received, even if it's like sad. Most of like the negative side of putting out those videos comes from just like being a woman on social media or being a woman in a style that is more like, sensual on social media. So it's more so that than the storytelling that I feel like there's a little bit of like pushback,
Yeah. So if you do something that's like a little risque, you're trying to tell that sensual side of the story. Is that what you mean? Where people are like, people are too much.
Yeah. People love to be like, oh, well, this isn't dance. This is, or, they have their ideas but they've never, I'm always just like, okay, well then you put on a heel and you do it. And then we can talk about if it's difficult or if it's technical or not,
seriously. Do you ever like engage in those conversations, or have you learned to kind of like stop and peel back from just letting people just be stupid?
Yeah, I have. I always do it in a professional way. Sometimes I would rather not,
Yeah.
I want to like
get into it, let them know.
Get into these people. But sometimes I'll just respond respectfully, because a lot of times it is like commenting on like outfits or like specifically on like what people's bodies look like. That's happened to me with like videos I posted. It's happened to my mentor before. My mentor is someone who has a limb difference. So a lot of times people will just like make specific comments on like people's looks in these videos. And in those senses, I will kind of like engage, but in a sense where like my students will see it and I'm like, this is just a part of it. Like everybody can dance no matter what you look like, no matter what you're built like. Dance is for everybody, because I don't want them to see those comments and be like, oh, I can't take these classes because I don't look a specific way or I don't have a specific body type. So in those senses, I will engage just to be like, you see this person's just, they're just wrong. Yeah. This is not reflective of what dance is or what my classes are.
And just piggybacking off the engagement side, you're talking about, you teach dance, when was the first person you had no idea who they were, they found you through social media or through whatever channel, where you're like, okay, I don't know this person, but they want to learn dance from me? Like, when did that happen? What was that story like? What did that feel like?
Yeah, that was crazy. It was actually during the pandemic. I wasn't even like teaching classes in the city yet. I had learned a combo from someone in LA, and I had posted it, and like the choreographer had reposted it, and someone reached out to me and they're like, this is so inspiring, like you're doing this in your room. And she was like, I stopped dancing years ago because I thought I couldn't do it. And she's like, I love to see you doing this, and like if you're ever like teaching, or if you ever start teaching, I want to be in those classes because you can just see your love for it. And that just meant a lot to me, because I was like, in my childhood bedroom taking this dance class. And so it was hard to still feel connected to the community, even though I was in this class. Like I was essentially alone in my room still. And just to see the impact that was able to have, just like from someone seeing a video, and knowing that they like had stopped dancing and they were like brought back to something that they loved, that they thought they couldn't do. That was huge. And that's like my favorite thing about teaching, is when people are like, oh, I stopped this, or I thought I couldn't do this. I have a lot of students that are like mothers, or like they're, they have children that are like grown in college, and they're like, I just wanted to like get back to this and do something that I love for me. And I just love to see it. It's just like, it's that impact that makes the teaching really special.
That is so beautiful to hear. And what I love about talking to the other creatives is like, we all share that same story, where it's like that level of vulnerability that you put yourself out there, and you're susceptible to people responding and however they want to take it, even the negative ones. But it's always that one person that randomly hits you up, like she did, saying how inspirational that was, that kind of keeps you going.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I could say with us, with Belle, there have been many times in which, we'll come out with something and we're like, yeah, this is really fire. And maybe we don't get that same perception back from other people, but it'll be one person that'll be like, yo, you guys have continuously done this, and that, and it's so great to watch you guys. And for me, that just means the world, because that's what artists do. Yeah. It's like, we just want to give a little piece of ourselves out, and if it touches one person, then mission accomplished, Oh, exactly. Love to hear that from you. So you said music is a big influence in terms of like how you go about making dances and choreography. I'm curious if there's a particular artist that you tend to like lean towards more, or if there's a genre of music, and for instance, that you like to go to?
Yeah, artists, probably not. I do like switch it up kind of every time I teach, because I can't do like the same type of heel style. So sometimes I'll do like hip hop, sometimes I'll contemporary. I do definitely lean towards more of like an R&B type vibe for heels. There's just something very like calming. I just love R&B music. So like if it's like I'm not one of those people that I'll choreograph to a song because it's like popular. I have to like really love it and like really connect to it, or else I'll just be sitting there for an hour with nothing coming out of me, because I'm like, I don't understand what to create to this. So yeah, a lot of like, I do like R&B. I like any, because my parents are from Portugal, so any type of music that has like the Portuguese language in it, I get really excited, and I just like love teaching to it. And my students are always like, we don't know what this is saying. Like, we're lost, but I break down the lyrics, and I find that a lot of times, like when it comes to like songs that are like linked to specific cultures, like it just makes the experience better. Anytime I've done like a live performance and it's been for an artist that's like very big in a specific culture, it's just like a different type of like energy on stage or with that artist, because this is so important to people. This music is just like linked to who they are. Yeah. And it's just like really special to see.
That's pretty cool. Have you ever like been on its show, or like a live performance where it's gotten super big press or anything like that, to that level or extent?
Yeah. So I think like one of my favorite jobs I've done recently, I worked with Nyla Blackman, who she's a big like soca artist. She's from Trinidad, and it was crazy. She like hit me up on Instagram. She was like, I'm doing this music video. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm down. Like, I'll
She just hit you up just like
social media.
Yeah, social media. I'm
That's
telling you,
so
it's
dope.
everything.
Yeah.
And so I went and did this music video, and it was really fun. She's honestly one of like the sweetest artists I've ever worked with. She's just like, you can tell she has so much like love and like passion for what she does. And so she had just recently signed like a record deal here in the United States. And so she had her first like US TV performance on one of, I think it was Fox. It was one of like the New York stations. And so she was like, will you guys be like my dancers for this performance? Like, I want it to be. It was for Caribbean Heritage Month, and it was just so special. I saw like all the comments in the video. People were just so excited. They were like, it's crazy to see like soca music and a Trinidad artist like this. Like, in New York and like in the US and seeing the impact and being able to see like her music played other places around the world. And people were just so excited, and just being a part of that was like really, really special. And her team being who they are and being super sweet made it a great experience as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is so awesome.
Yeah. So what are maybe some other high points that you've had through the career, like other experiences, other, best teaching moments?
Yeah, I'd say another high point. I did a concert with Eddie Herrera. He's like a Dominican artist in the Bronx, and it was a great learning experience for me because I was with the choreographer and like all the dancers spoke Spanish. Like they came from the DR to do this concert, and I was like the one dancer that like didn't speak Spanish at all. Like I was in this group chat. We had like 2 rehearsals to learn this whole concert. Everything was in Spanish and like Dominican Spanish, which is it's quick. It's fast.
Yes.
So I'd be in those rehearsals and like they would just be rapid fire, like talking to us, and I would get like a good 80%. It's close enough to Portuguese. I was like, I can pick up bits and pieces, but I'm not getting all of it.
Right.
And the choreographer would be like, she understanding me? Because I wouldn't say anything. I was like, I have nothing to say back. Like, I can't speak it. I can understand it a little bit.
Okay.
So I was just nodding. But the concert went really well. And like, it was one of those things, again, where like, this is someone that people grew up with, like listening in their households, like it was like whole families there. They all had like their like flags from the Dominican Republic, and like people just loved it. And it was just I was like merenguing on stage. I was like, I've never done this before. Like, here I am doing other styles, but it was a high point because I was like, look at me learning, picking up Spanish on the job.
That's fire. How much does like the crowd in those instances like get you fired up like as you're dancing?
Oh, it's huge. The crowd is everything. Yeah, the energy in that room, like people, the first song, it was like a whole concert. The first song, people were up on their feet, like dancing, grabbing each other and dancing. Like everyone was singing along. It was a lot of fun. And honestly, like it was just great. I had like the best time. The whole team, all the dancers I worked with were incredible. The choreographer was incredible. I had like friends who were like, oh, my parents are going, like they love him. It was just one of those things. It was so tied to like so many people's culture in New York too, that it was great. And then a teaching moment, I've had a lot, but there was one because I'm a dancer. I have a disability. I can't see very well. I have nerve damage in my brain. And I don't talk about it like often on my social media, but sometimes I will, because like sometimes it's hard for me in classes. They love to do like mood lighting where they like dim the lights, and then I'm like, I can't see. So sometimes like I'll be like, I'm proud of how I did in this class, despite the fact that I like was very like dizzy. I couldn't see very well. Being dizzy in a heel, it affects your like stability and your strength and what you're dancing. And I had shared that in one of my classes, and one of my students came after me and she was like, I'm really happy that you shared that. She was like, I have a disability that people can't see, and a lot of times I feel like I can't like be in dance spaces because I don't want to like distract, or like if I have to step out of the room or something. And she was like, so hearing you and seeing like what you've been able to do with that and not letting it stop you from going after what you want, she was like, that's inspired me to keep going. She's like, I honestly almost quit before I came to this dance class.
No way.
And she was like, and when I heard you say that, I was like, you know what, this is my sign to keep going. And I was like, it just meant a lot to me because it's not something I share a lot with my students. And seeing that, like me sharing that helped her feel better in her own disability and being able to dance. Like it was just, I was like, this is what I'm here for. This is why I do what I do.
Was there a moment where you thought that you might not be able to dance, or was this disability something you've grown up with?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up with it. I developed it actually in 2020.
Oh my God.
During COVID. Yeah.
Oh my
2020
God.
was a year for Lia. So I actually had perfect vision before then.
Wow.
So it was a little bit of a learning curve. It's something they're still kind of figuring it out. So there was a moment where I was like, I had to like sit and be like, I don't know how much longer I will be able to be a professional dancer, because if it, keeps progressing, like it's going to hit a point where if I can't see very well, like, there's only so much I can do. But I think it just like made me kind of like shift my intentions with dance and be like, well, I'm going to do what I want with this art as long as I'm able to. And my family was great. My brother loves to crack jokes, and he was like, you could just be like the Stevie Wonder of dance. And I was like, God. That's not as uplifting as you thought it was going to be. But yeah, I think it just like shifted my kind of like priorities with it, where I was like, I really want to do focused it on being like, I'm doing this because I love it, you know, like the money aspect, making money from it isn't really priority anymore. It's more just like the impact and being able to do it as long as I can.
I can't imagine, like, obviously, but that shows, again, like the resiliency, the determination, just to do what you love, right? Because life is short. I say this all the time to the boys. It's like, we're enjoying the process of every step it takes along our path for Belleme to blow up, but along that path, we want to make sure that we take every day just to be grateful, because it's like, we have an opportunity to do this. You have an opportunity to still dance now at a high level and impact so many people. And, you know, that's really what this is all about at the end of the day, is like capitalizing on these small moments.
And I love to make my little blind jokes in class to students, and they're like, do we laugh? You can laugh. Yeah, I'll joke, and they're all like, it's okay, you can laugh. I'm laughing about it. You can laugh about it.
Yeah, self-deprecating humor goes off well.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going next with the craft and everything else?
Yeah, so I definitely want to continue teaching and training. I want to grow a lot in different styles. And I want to do more like performances. My favorite part of being like on the professional side of it is the live performances, because there's so much of like an energy in a community, and just kind of like you really like see while you're on stage the impact. And I'm just like, that's when I feel the most alive, is when I'm like performing on stage. So I just want to have the opportunity to do that more. And I also want to like try teaching other places. I've taught a little bit back home in Mass, but just like other places around the country, maybe in Portugal when I go. So
that would be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Have you started those conversations yet?
Yeah, I reached out to one studio in Portugal. Portugal is very laid back in terms of like organization, so they'll get back to me in like Europe in general. They'll get back to me in like 4 months. So I'm trying to, next time I go and see my family there, maybe like do a class, because the community is growing. There's a lot of like, you see a lot of different dance communities popping up in different places. You know, before it was like, oh, you have to be in New York or LA. And now it's kind of like everywhere you see like different communities kind of growing. So I would love to teach back in like, you know, my parents' country. That's just so cool to me.
Yeah, that would be super dope. I'm hoping that works out for you. I want to know, is there a dream collab or a dream artist that you would love to like work with?
Yeah, I know it's such a big dream artist, but I love me some Beyonce. I mean, like she it's like such an obvious answer, but she was like my first ever concert, and I mean, I'm sure we've all seen her performance. Like, she's incredible. Her dancers that she have is always like, they're always like the top in the industry. They're such good dancers, and like, I just, you know, her music, I love it, and that would be insane to work for her. And then there are also like some other artists, like I think it would be really special, just like some artists based that are like really popular like in Portugal, like that, like my family, that are kind of tied more to like my cultural aspect. There's some like Kalama and some other artists that I think would just be really cool, because I think it would mean a lot just also for like me and my background and my family, and kind of connecting it to like where I got started in general.
I love that.
Yeah, but I'd say like those are probably the big ones. I'm always excited to do any artist that like really dances, you know, and like really has that like performance quality. I would be honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting that you go for Beyonce, because it's like you would be performing in front of massive crowds, right? Like, what's the difference between you're performing for 10 people, small crowd, versus like hundreds of people? How does that feel?
I think like your intention is like the same. You're like, I want to give these people an experience no matter like how much they paid. I think when it's a huge crowd like that, it's just, it can get overwhelming, and there's like a lot going on. You know, you have like the in-ears, and there's like a lot more, like you have to be very aware of like where the artist is, the stage. You have to try to like, it's kind of like bigger movements. You're trying to make it so everyone that's in this venue can see you and connect with you and dance with you. Whereas like a smaller venue is more intimate, you know? But I would say like probably like the energy, and making sure like when you're dancing in front of a big crowd, because it can be, you know, intense, making sure that your energy is up that whole time. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Like, do you have like pregame ritual?
Yeah. Deep breath. Yeah, I listen to like calming music before.
That makes sense.
It's honestly classical music. Like, it's not, it can't be like what I'm dancing to. It has to be like
dancing Beyonce, you're listening to Beethoven.
Yeah, no, actually. And I think just like reminding myself, like, because I've had some performances like where when I'm nervous, and like being nervous, dancing in a heel, it can sabotage you. Then your ankles are a little shaky. Sure. So just like reminding myself, like, this is what I do this for. And like, no matter what, like realistically, like if I mess up on stage, if I do it with confidence and I'm still like smiling, you know, no one in the crowd is going to notice. Like, how are they to know that I don't have a little solo moment, you know?
Yeah.
So just reminding myself that like they're there for the experience. And as long as I keep that energy up and I keep that performance and I keep that like love and that passion, that's what people will connect to. So just like kind of grounding myself and like, this is why I'm doing this, you know, not to be like perfect steps on stage.
Right.
To make people feel something when they're watching.
What about freestyling? Because I know like that's not for every dancer. Some people don't enjoy that. Some people, that's what they excel in.
I've grown with my freestyle when I started, because it's obviously like coming from a ballet background. It's not like we were like freestyling ballet. Exactly. It's not like linked to that style as much. So when I first started, I was just like stressed. You know, I was like, I don't know what to do, and I was like, there were moments where I would just like stand there because like some teachers would be like, okay, you know, they put you in like a cipher and they'd be like, call you out and you have to go in the middle of the circle and everyone's like watching you, and I was like, hit a shimmy, you know? But I think freestyling is actually like very crucial for dancers to do no matter what style they're in, because it really helps you understand yourself as a dancer and helps you understand kind of like your own pocket and what you're comfortable with. And then even when you take styles that are outside of your comfort zone, having that understanding of yourself and your body makes you kind of excel in those styles too. So even though like I do primarily heels, if I'm in a hip hop class and there's like a freestyle element, I feel comfortable doing it because I'm like, I can still hit these steps, but in a little bit more of like a feminine way, or I still can add my own type of like pocket to these steps. And that comes from freestyling, and it comes from like understanding your freestyle. It is stressful. And sometimes in certain situations, it's really stressful, like when they put certain music on. But I would say, you know, you're like, how am I supposed to dance it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of like performance. I dance at like different like clubs and like bars, and like I would do like bar mitzvahs and things like that. And it's a lot of times like the DJ just like plays different songs and it's just me freestyling. And that's like what our job is to freestyle at these events. And sometimes they play some songs where I'm like, you know, how am I going to freestyle to Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill?
Oh, no way.
There's no music for the whole beginning part of the song. You want me up here rapping? So, but I think you learn a lot freestyling, and it does help you like kind of grow your own specific style and craft a lot. So.
That's pretty cool. Wow. Fun fact, I used to dance growing up. I did like dance classes too, but like I was always more the freestyle artist. Like I prefer just like going off the top. So learning choreographic moves was always hard for me to stay on beat. But to your point, like it's so tricky because like I'm thinking of so many different moves. Like at the top of my head, I'm just doing it without really thinking much more.
Yeah,
unfair advantage at college parties, by the way, when this guy would show up, when you get on the dance floor.
Yeah, well, I wasn't as good as my other roommate, which. He was a crazy breakdancer. That's a story for another day. But
breakdancing is insane.
No, breakdancing is awful.
People that freestyle as like their like specialty, they're insane. I'm always just like in awe of them, because I'm like, how are you coming up with this like on the go? And half time like it's like songs they haven't heard, and I'm like, you don't even know the song, and like you're just like hitting all these beats. Like it's really a skill. It's
actually leads me to another question. What did you think of the Olympics and like the dancing portion of that?
Australia.
Yeah. I think I wish that there was more attention on the other dancers that maybe weren't Australia. I think that kind of
a professional answer right there. I like that.
I think that got a lot of attention, and you know, it's tough because as dancers, a lot of times people do look down at a lot of dance, and they're like, this isn't, you know, they don't view dancers as athletes, and they don't view it as being difficult. And it's a lot of like, if people don't try it, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, it's probably not hard, you know. People lack an ability to be like, oh, well, if I haven't done it, it's probably easy, you know. But I think it was really cool to see dance, and that meant a lot to a lot of communities, especially where like breakdancing originated from, and like seeing that on a stage like the Olympics. I wish there was more attention to like that aspect versus, you know, Australia kind of.
That's what we got.
Kind of stole the thunder, which, you know, that's a whole other thing. Having a PhD in breakdancing, because certain dances like they originate not in the studio. So like, how do you have a PhD in something that comes from the streets? But
facts.
That's a conversation for another day.
No, I feel that. I'm excited because we're hosting in LA the next Olympics, and I'm hoping that maybe that leg of things will be a little different.
Yeah, I hope they do sometime, because it really is like a lot of dance. I mean, like dance battles, like it's insane to see. And like when it comes from like so many dance styles originate from New York. Yeah. And like and from LA too, from like the Bay Area and everything. So when you really see those styles and people doing them in where they originated from, it's just crazy to see, because like the energy, that sense of community is just different than when you do it other places. Like dance in New York City, I'm like honored to be here and dancing here, because so many styles came from here, and it's just a part of like who people are here. It's just part of the culture of New York. And so I think for things like that with the Olympics, just making sure that when you bring those styles, that people are being respectful of like kind of where it came from in those cultures, and making sure that those are being put at the forefront of presenting those styles on like a world stage.
I think one of my questions for you is in terms of dancers that most people know, right? Because I'm sure there are a bunch of dancers I'm not even aware of.
Yeah.
But who would you say is your favorite, or who's the top dancer of all time?
Oh my God.
That was a tough question.
Top dancer of all time is crazy. Because there's
so many different types of dancing.
There's so many different styles, and there's so many pioneers in different styles. But one that I just really love, and she's just a dancer that I used to watch like back when dance was like big in like the YouTube days. Yeah. When like everyone was watching like those dance classes from LA on YouTube. Like I love Lia Fialho. I think she's insane. She's a heels dancer out of LA, and she moves in a heel like she's in a sneaker. Like she does like full like hip hop choreography, but like in a heel. Oh shoot. And she's like one of my favorites, because she just brought a different energy to heels, and it was very like raw, and she was always like unapologetically like, this is my style that I'm bringing to this. And she was like iconic in so many ways for that. She has so many videos that like even my cousins who don't follow dance, have never danced in their life, they're like, oh my God, that one Lia Fialho video, that one class, because like she just had that type of impact. And then just personally, like I love Cisco choreography. He's also based out of LA, but they're just also two teachers that they're phenomenal dancers, and they're incredible. And then when you're in their classes, they're the sweetest people in the world. And they make sure that community and that energy is still a part of their class, even though they're who they are, and people can be stressed out. Right. And so they're probably two of my favorites. I love them a lot. I watch their videos all the time. I'm like, wow, I want to be like you.
100%. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us again. Like, it makes me feel so great talking to other creatives, other artists, other people that are willing to be vulnerable and put themselves out there just for the stuff that they love. And so it's been awesome hearing about your story and rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Patience been a virtue. Get it? We gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore. That's why we step by step it.